For those of you who've been watching my channel for some time, you probably know that I spend a fair amount of time covering UK spaceflight and European spaceflight in general. But one company that I've really struggled to ever get a lot of detail from, and especially an interview with, is Orbex. This company is based out of Scotland, but has a lot of connections in Denmark and has received a substantial amount of funding from the European Space Agency, private investors, and also from the UK Space Agency. Out of all of the companies in Britain that are trying to get something into orbit, actually Orbex has a very strong position, probably one of the more likely companies to actually make a successful orbital launch. And yet, there's so many things that I don't know about this company, really, that nobody knows. However, recently at Spacecom in London, I got an opportunity to interview the CEO for the first time ever. This is something that I'm very grateful for, and I learned quite a lot about this company and its recent accomplishments and its future plans. And in conjunction with this, they are going to be launching from Saxavord Spaceport in Shetland, which is becoming the spaceport of choice for the majority of Western European launch providers. And I got an opportunity to interview one of the top dogs there as well at the same convention. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, if you want to see me attend more conventions like next month's Space Symposium, well, please join new Patreon supporters Thomas Mizuski, Douglas Bush, John Keltner, Eduardo Maggiani, along with Michael Murphy, Astor Vestbjerg, Carlton Little, Benjamin Parr, and Cameron Davis, along with others who have chosen to support my latest trip to Space Symposium. I'm about 40% of the way to my goal. All the details in the description, but enough self-promotion. Let's get on to these amazing interviews at Spacecom 2025 right now. All right, folks, the coverage continues here at Spacecom. So many exciting things that we've done so far here, but now, for all of you who've been familiar with watching my content over the years, you know the name Saxavord, although we have lots of new viewers that may not be familiar with this name. So, of course, we have one of the top dogs at this organization with us right now. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Debbie Strang, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Saxavord Spaceport, the UK's only vertical licensed spaceport.
Fantastic. Thank you again for joining us today. So we're going to get right into it here. 2025, it sounds like some exciting things are about to be happening here. RFA is talking about coming back and attempting a launch this year. What's the most exciting thing to you?
To me, that seems like an easy question, but a difficult question because there is so much going on. After last year and the activity on site with RFA, with their successful live firing of engines and then the anomaly, since then the work still continues. There's an awful lot to be done, still looking at our safety and adhering to our spaceport license and our range license. But of course, the start of the year, RFA got their license too. So we have 3 out of the 4 licenses to launch. Saying that we don't need the 4th one, which would be the license for the payload. We have 3 licenses that would enable a launch this year if everything goes according to plan. So still exciting times. In some ways it might not seem outwardly that there's a lot of activity, but I can assure you there is daily activity with the planning in the run-up to the testing as RFA will return. They're starting to come back to Shetland now. They will build up on their testing. Our facilities are being finalised. Our integration hangar where the rocket will go into is complete. The clean rooms are being completed and tested. A huge amount, maybe it looks as though it's behind the scenes, but a huge amount going on at the moment.
Wow, that's fantastic. Quite a lot, obviously. So there are a number of other clients that your organization has as well. You just picked up Orbex, whom I had an opportunity to interview earlier today, or yesterday rather. In addition to that, you also have High Impulse. You've got Skyrora. Have you heard anything from them? Are you expecting any sort of activity in addition to RFA this year?
So we talk all the time to our clients, and there are more than you've mentioned too. So the dialogue's going on all the time, because whilst we want to host these launches, and we're fortunate we have 3 launch pads, 2 of them are still to be completed. So we have more flexibility than many spaceports to do that. It's understanding the timescales and where each client is in their particular development, understanding their requirements. So what we will do with any new client that comes along, we will enter either a formal discovery phase, or maybe it's a bit more informal, understanding, what their key requirements are, what fuels, what commodities, what accommodation, what storage, all that is a huge amount of work that needs to go on before we get into the detail of, the contract, it comes into place, and let's just do this. So a lot of discussion, and I think the work that we've done with RFA, we're building our knowledge too in those discussions. So, a huge amount of talk going on, no set details really from any of them, but detailed discussions to get to the point of where we can set these dates and know what's exactly happening.
Now, can you share any information with us about any of these clients? Because only the ones that I've listed are the only ones I know about. Are you able to announce any of the others, or are they still? Is it still a secret?
It's still sort of bubbling under, and some of these companies are in sort of earlier stages of formation and development, as I'm sure your viewers will know, and it's quite difficult at times to predict which ones are going to speed up and which ones are going to slow down for a technical reason or for some other reason. So it's keeping that awareness, isn't it, of what's going on in the industry and how the companies are moving, and at what point they are then going to be ready to come and have the really detailed conversations with us to enable us to make this plan going forward. So.
Now, I also got an opportunity to meet some of your interns. In fact, really spent quite a lot of time with them in the month that I was in Shetland, and I was so impressed with the program. Can you share a little bit more with me about that, about your STEM education initiatives, those sorts of things?
Yes, I'm delighted that you said that, because we have just been overwhelmed almost with the caliber of undergraduates that we've hosted on site. So it's been quite informal. It's something that we really believe in, so we've just got on and done it in our own way. So we offer a 6-week placement to undergraduates, sometimes with a directly related degree, sometimes not, physics, maths, obviously, but this summer we've got somebody coming on who's doing environmental science at St Andrews. So a real mix. They come for 6 weeks in the summer, and they have to throw themselves into the team. They have to do a mix of everything. They could be cutting the grass, and the next day they could be shadowing one of the operations managers. So it's a real mix. So they've embraced, they've become part of the company and what we're trying to achieve. It's just 6 weeks, because we know that island life at times, it takes a little adjustment. So we don't want them, feeling homesick. So they come for 6 weeks, they contribute, they do a project with us as well that has really assisted in some of our thinking in certain aspects. And generally, most of them want to come back. So we've had a couple that have come back 2 years running. We have had to say, you really can't come back for a third time, as much as we really value them, because we need to keep this opportunity open, because we can't keep extending it, because we have to manage it. We have to make sure that the interns get as much out of it as we do, because it's important they see what opportunities there are in the space industry for them. So, but it's been hugely successful, and I really look forward to this summer and having another 10 coming through. So, and last year, I don't know if you caught, there were a couple of females as well, because this is, let's just be honest and admit it, that this industry is no better than any other for encouraging females, and and having that diversity that really strengthens any business. And we need to make sure that we can try and do that as best we can. So, yeah, 2 females last summer. So let's keep working on that too. And just at the moment, Jordan, we've got a space camp going on in Unst at the moment. So it's March. It's probably going to be a little wet and wild up there. But we've got Leicester Space Centre, funded by UK Space Agency, is taking 35 Shetland kids for a whole week, fully funded, staying in Unst at a youth hostel, doing all sorts of space activities. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm, in some ways, whilst I'm enjoying being here in Spacecom in London, I probably would equally love to be in Unst with 35 kids understanding space and Shetland and all those opportunities, as we know will be there for them when they get the age to decide what they want to do.
That's so amazing. I mean, really, it's astonishing the robustness of the educational program that you folks have. It's quite amazing. Last question. This is something in regards to what happened last year with RFA and the anomaly on the pad, rather spectacular explosion, fire, etc. The one thing I've noticed, the one thing that strikes me about your organization, and I've had a chance to talk to some of your environmental people who work at the spaceport, is the fact that you don't make enemies amongst environmentalists. That doesn't happen because, they're out at Starbase in South Texas. There are hordes of environmentalist protesters, etc., who are constantly, including through legal methods, trying to get all of that stopped. And yet, even though Shetland is an amazingly beautiful and valuable place from a conservationist standpoint, you guys are somehow not ruffling feathers, and somehow they're trusting you to keep this environment safe. Can you explain how all of this happened, how you make this work?
I think, and thank you for highlighting that, and it maybe isn't as straightforward as it comes across, but right from the outset, and I always say it, when you're stood on our launch pad, it is a spectacular environment, and so it's a constant reminder that actually this needs to be as protected. We need to make sure that whatever we're doing, whether we're doing construction, whether we're building up to launch activity, that we have a mind to looking at the environment and how to protect it. And I think the UK and Scotland in particular is making a real effort to look at the sustainability from an environmental point of view of space right from the start. And I suppose we have that advantage because we're late to the game in some ways. We can set that as the baseline as to how we do space in the UK. So our legislation, Space Industries Act and the regulations set out, the environmental considerations that we need to make, that the launch vehicle providers need to make. It's already embedded. Our planning system is very clear on the habitat management plans that we need to look at, that constant checking, monitoring, evaluating, and we'll continue to do that. And I think in the early stages where we were doing some engine testing, not on the launch site but at the local airfield, that still gave us an opportunity to think about the environment and the noise, monitoring the noise with an engine test, in the build-up. In the absence of anything else, let's do it now with an engine test, and then we will have some data to understand as we build up what the effect might be. So it is really important to us, and it's nice to be recognised that we are trying our best. We won't be perfect, we won't get it right all the time, but we've really put a lot of mechanisms in place to keep an eye on the environmental side.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today. I also, before this conversation, you told me that you guys are going to be ready to go on the 1st of July for when RFA may be coming back to get this launch going. So I wish you all the success in the world in the second part of the year with hopefully the first successful orbital launch from Western Europe.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you.
All right, folks, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I cover a lot of UK spaceflight, and you know that I've been trying to talk to Orbex for years, so we finally get this opportunity. Really appreciate it. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Thank you, Jordan, or the Angry Astronaut. Yeah, my name's Phil Chambers. I'm CEO of Orbex. We are a British micro-launch company building Prime. You can see this behind us. This is a around 20 meter long, 1.5 meter wide micro-launcher, IOC of about 150 kilograms to SSO, but with the ability to scale that. Fully powered by biopropane. Vertically integrated company. We built all of the subsystems ourselves, and we operate out of northern Scotland.
Fantastic. So tell me, you've been around for a number of years now. You've been working towards launch. You've moved at least your initial operations to Saxavord. Can you tell me why you've decided to head up to Shetland?
Yeah, it's really a financial decision more than anything else. The Saxavord Spaceport is already licensed and mostly finished. We are halfway through the build of a spaceport in Sutherland. For those of you not that familiar with UK geography, Sutherland is effectively the north coast of the mainland of the United Kingdom, whereas Saxavord is on the furthest away island, an island called Unst. Obviously, operationally, slightly harder because we have to get ferries and truck the things over there. We were originally only around 3 hours driving from our own spaceport, but in terms of the amount of capital that needs investing, it's a lot cheaper for us to move to Saxavord and then pour that capital into rocketry development rather than concrete and pads.
Now tell me about your technology, because I've heard a lot about it in terms of maybe some 3D printing involved, reusability in your plans, that sort of thing. Tell me at least the things that set you apart from other launch providers.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we start at the bottom, 3D printing. So it's powder bed, Inconel 3D printing under argon to build our rocket chambers. Then we are using all carbon composite structure. You can kind of see this behind us. So stage 2 here, stage 1. We've built the world's first lineless carbon fiber cryogenic tanking system. So we have helium in the center, over 600 bar operating pressure. Then we have densified bio-LPG, and then we have on the outside liquid oxygen, so you get better thermal management because the oxygen is kind of densifying the LPG. You can also save some mass on that tanking system because you can share end domes, so the whole thing is lighter, which obviously in micro launches is quite important. There is also reusability in the first stage, so what we call a reflight system is another one of our global patents. In the interstage here, you have a series of petals which slows down the rocket from hypersonic speeds and allows a more normal parachute to open rather than a very heavy one to allow recovery of the first stage. So they're the sort of key, I would say, differentiators, innovations we've built in.
Fantastic. So there's been a lot of talk in terms of the UK equivalent of the FAA, the CAA and such. Of course, Saxavord has their license. How are things coming along with you folks in your relationship with the CAA? Is it looking optimistic?
Yeah, I would say the relationship with the CAA is great. The licensing regime is much less prescriptive than the US one, much more open-ended, so you have to sort of prove to the CAA what you're doing is safe. I would say that we have a great relationship with the CAA, so I meet them on a monthly basis, the leadership team, the team working every day with the CAA, so we don't expect any problems getting the launcher license. They've obviously got a bit of experience doing it now. They've already won to RFA. Obviously, Saxavord have the range license and the spaceport license, so I think we're in good shape for where we need to be, honestly.
Fantastic. Now, you also mentioned scaling up, that it seems that the capability to carry bigger payloads is what's popular right now. You have plans to do that as well, then?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting day today because today is the day the ITT for European Launcher Challenge, which is a new ESA program, is released. This, I think, will be a generational opportunity for the UK to get back into the medium and heavy lift markets. Obviously, we've not been in that for a long time since we kind of got out of the Ariane program, ages ago. The minister was on stage today talking about, the third launch in history being a British rocket with a British satellite, but we've not done a ton since then. So I do think this program is important to UK space industry to be able to fund development of bigger launchers and get the economies of scale that are going to be required to drive the price down.
Fantastic. One last question in terms, and it's kind of connected to that, in terms of sovereign European capability. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that, especially when we're talking about defense. How important is sovereign launch capability for Europe and the UK in particular?
I think, as we've seen with recent geopolitical events, it is incredibly important. Space is a domain where you need to have sovereign access to, sovereign capability to deliver payloads to, and potentially sovereign payloads to. And I think the UK can do all of that with the the companies that we have here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Jordan.